right here in the outside the parking lot. There's a baby stuck inside the car. There's a baby, it's locked, and the windows are up, and it's really hot.
The example that we want to drive home this morning is not to leave children unattended in vehicles. I just want to express the Indio Police Department's commitment to the prevention of these types of tragedies and just solidify that we must train up our children in the way they should go, and that when they are parents, our hope is they will not depart from that example. We are the leaders as parents and guardians to our children and the next generation, and we set the example that they will follow.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the beautiful city of Indio. We are proud to host the law enforcement community, the District Attorney's Office, our youth organization, and the many members of the public on this day as we unveil August as Purple Ribbon Month in honor of Kaitlyn's Law. It's our privilege to be the host city to have this event today. The city of Indio in the Coachella Valley is the largest community with the largest population under the age of 18. And we believe strongly that it is important that we all band together, work together, and make sure that we raise the level of awareness amongst our community that we need to protect those that are the most vulnerable, which are the children within our community. This year we celebrate 15 years that Kaitlyn's Law was first conceived. After a tragic event in 2000 and the district attorney's successful prosecution in that case, we were able to move legislation through the state of California to create Kaitlyn's Law. And this is a solemn day that we sit here and remember that day. But it is a very important day because, as Chief Twist just mentioned, we continue to have incidents throughout our country, throughout our community, where children are left unattended in a vehicle. Maybe an innocent act. It may be out of care for a child that a parent might leave the child in the car because they think they'll be right back. But it takes just a few minutes, especially in a community like ours, where we know the temperatures can rise rather quickly, for a child to fall victim to suffocation in a car. So here at the City of Indio, we're proud that all of us are coming together to continue to send the message to our community that we need to be aware and we need to do everything we can to protect the most vulnerable in our community. So thank you for being here this morning.
And according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, heat stroke is the second leading cause, second only to car crashes in terms of vehicular fatality for children under 14. In 2014, over 30 children died from heat stroke, and in 2015, 11 already have. All that glass and all those seals can turn a car in direct sunlight into a lethal greenhouse in just minutes. It traps the heat beautifully, but it does not let it out, and cracking windows is not sufficient. Ambient temperatures of 80 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit can translate in a car in direct sunlight to an interior temperature of 130 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit in just minutes. Within 10 minutes, the heat within that car will pass life-threatening levels. Shortly after, as the child's core temperature reaches that critical level of 104 degrees, they will die. Children, especially our youngest toddlers and infants, are uniquely vulnerable. Their surface areas are smaller, their ability to rid their bodies of excess heat is less efficient, and their fluid reserves to avoid dehydration and organ failure are much less. Historically, in fact, children have succumbed in ambient temperatures of just 60 degrees. Even though we have been fortunate in Riverside County to not have had any heat-related death for a pediatric individual since at least 2014, as a county's lead medical authority, I don't want there to be another. Lock your cars. Make sure that your keys are out of reach of children. Check front and back before you go. Know where your children are at all times, and if you see a child trapped in a vehicle, any vehicle, call 911 immediately. This summer, let's make sure that we keep our children healthy and safe. Never leave a child unattended in a vehicle, not for a minute and not for a second. Thank you very much.
I don't know that I can be nearly as quick as my colleagues in order to do Kaitlyn Russell's story some justice. On behalf of the Russells, I know that Tammy and her husband couldn't be more grateful for law enforcement really taking the lead on this and making sure that the word is spread that our children must be protected and that even a moment in the car can have deadly consequences. So just, if you bear with me a moment to let you know exactly how this case came about. And I really truly credit my office for taking the forefront and doing something that offices around the country had yet to do, which is to kind of battle the ground that there has to be additional protections for our children, who are our most precious assets, and have to rely on the adults to protect them. In 2000, August 15th of 2000, I was assigned to the Sexual Assault and Child Abuse Unit for Riverside County. And if there is ever a death involving a child, our office responds. We are somewhat unique in that regard, but we want to be there in case they need legal assistance, if we can render some assistance, get search warrants, anything like that. I can tell you, those of you who are in law enforcement know that there is no other scene that is more effective on an individual than responding to a child death. It just affects you. Those of you who are with CHP probably see the traffic accidents, and it just affects you. I had seen my fair share of death and destruction, but nothing really prepared me for responding to the household where Kaitlyn died. It happened in the community of Lake Matthews. Those of you who are unfamiliar, it is between Corona and essentially Paris. It's a lovely community, overlooks a body of water, a reservoir. It's a little bit higher elevated, so it's got cooler temperatures. But in the Inland Empire, cooler simply means 104, 106, especially in August. It was a nice home. The person who resided in the home was a CHP officer. Her wife had invited Kaitlyn's babysitter over to discuss homeschooling. And so she packed up Kaitlyn in the car. Again, the babysitter was a member of the community, no issues, children of her own. She took her materials, she drove over to the home in Lake Matthews. She got out of the van. Kaitlyn was sleeping. If all of you can envision this. She took her materials out of the car and left Kaitlyn. And according to the chief forensic pathologist at the time, Dr. Joseph Cohen, Kaitlyn died probably within 5 minutes. The windows were up, the car was locked, and of course, children do not have the ability to sweat. And so she died of hypothermia, if I have that correct, and within minutes. When law enforcement responded, of course, it is a child who simply died of some sort of heat stroke. And when I arrived on the scene as the deputy DA, she was no longer there. But I can tell you that everybody in that household was devastated. So what do you do with the information that the child was simply left? It's an accident. The position is that you don't get a pass because you accidentally killed a child. So we did, in fact, file on Sue Ann Calderon for involuntary manslaughter, and she ultimately pled, I believe, in 2000, and received a sentence of approximately 3 months. But that wasn't the point. The point is that Kaitlyn Russell's parents then took this tragedy and made it their cause that this shouldn't ever happen again. And they sponsored legislation with the assistance of legislators to say that there's got to be a mechanism in place to say that you can't do this, to make this type of activity somehow wrong. And so what happened was that they passed Vehicle Code Section 15620, which is known as Kaitlyn's Law, which makes it an infraction to leave a child under the age of 6 unattended in a car. It seems almost, well, shouldn't you know that? You'd be surprised. You go into the market for just a second. It's easier than taking the child out of the car seat, right? The child is sleeping, the child is sweaty, the child is heavy. I can tell you that 1,000 sweaty kisses are certainly better than seeing a child buried. The upshot of it is that we now have the mechanism in place to make sure that these types of accidents, if not completely eliminated, at least we know that it's preventable. I can tell you that the community outreach countywide from the desert, here in the desert, all the way to our far reaches in Southwest and in Corona, for Purple Ribbon was amazing. And within a year, I can tell you that there were at least 3 stories of individuals, citizens walking by, breaking down the car windows, smashing them in to retrieve the child, because people became aware that this could kill a child. Within 6 months, there was a story in Corona where a woman just wanted to go into the store for just a second. Again, the ambient temperatures inside the car were in triple digits, and it saved the child's life. So while Kaitlyn's death was tragic, from there we now have the cause that says we're going to make sure that our children are protected. And as the doctor indicated, I think that Riverside County really led the cause, and now we have reduced these types of incidents exponentially. And so that is really, the positive that came out of this tragedy. I can't thank the Russell family enough for really making it their cause to do something that matters for Kaitlyn having died. So I really am grateful as well, because I won't ever forget it. Those of you who've ever responded to a child death will never forget those types of incidents. So thank you for, even 15 years later, taking up this cause to say, we're not going to allow our children to be unprotected in our cars. So thank you.
What are the takeaways? And the takeaways from this morning: never leave a child unattended in or around a car. Look before you lock. Mira antes de cerrar. The results could be deadly. And most importantly, not for a minute, not even for a second.